we won't have that conversation.
No, let's not get into that today.
Yes.
Haley knows how I feel, but
Yeah,
come to like not talk about that.
no, right.
Can you believe that they're gonna wear the jerseys in Houston? That
Yes,
is,
I'm excited about it.
I just that's so petty, man. They wrong.
It
I
is.
mean,
Okay, but let's talk about how petty the Texans fans are to us about this stuff. So we're just giving it back. That's all.
well, I think it's more Bud Adams than actually Tennessee. I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah. So
definitely,
you guys will
definitely,
just get the residuals because of Bud.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm ready when you guys are.
all right, Bryce,
On you, Bryce.
Okay. Are you guys ready?
We're
we're
ready.
ready.
Well, let's kind of start off with the Eastern Oilers uniforms and stuff like that, because
Hmm.
I kind of want to go over that with you guys.
Well, I think we just talked about it. He thinks it's a little petty, and it probably is. It probably is a little petty, but but I
Well,
can't wait. I can't wait to. I just love those uniforms.
Well, I think it's the Tennessee save 1 year has really no connection to the Oilers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so really it just comes down to the city of Houston has even offered the Adams family to buy
Hmm.
all of the Oilers naming rights, et cetera, which I think
Hmm.
is fair. You come up with a price and you give Houston back that because Tennessee had it for 1 year. And
Yeah.
you think about this from this perspective. Earl Campbell, Warren Moon,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, Pastorini, Stabler, all of these great athletes from the 70s, 80s, up into the 90s that are, Hall of Famers, Bruce Matthews, Mike Munchak, all of these guys. There's nothing in Houston. There's no ring of honor. There's
Hmm.
nothing that the city of Houston has to say that Earl Campbell even played in Houston, except
Right.
the memory. And so for Bud Adams to not give that or even sell it back to Houston seems a bit,
Yeah.
it's a problem, but it's business, so I understand it.
Well, and I think it's hard now because we do feel like we have like for us as fans, we have really um I guess adopted like that. Even there's a lot of Titans fans that were Houston Oilers fans, that moved, moved with the team. But I think for us that we're only fans as Titans fans, it's been 20 plus years now, and we've kind of adopted that history too. So it's hard it's hard this late in the game to
Yeah.
go back and I mean Jonathan has brought up a point before about maybe not in Houston
you're cutting.
to like even
You cut
what?
out a little bit.
Oh,
No, you're
sorry.
good.
To Jonathan's brought up a point about maybe not giving it to the Houston Texans, but to have something in the city of Houston to kind of what's the word?
Well,
Some
I think
sort
that,
of
yeah, I think
honoring
that's a,
them, like a
yes,
ring of honor, something just in the city, not
yes.
necessarily to the Texans.
Yes, I think that that makes a lot of sense because
Mm-hmm.
even the Texans don't necessarily want anything to do with the Oilers per
I
se.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
They're their
So it
separate.
really is the city of Houston, and it really
Mm-hmm.
is, the generation 40 and over that really values the Oilers, and so.
We
Uh,
got a good comment in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Dr. Brown. Sorry.
Yeah, and so I like what Titan said. The Titan Fox said. I totally agree. But you know, it just seems like a generation of football, and I feel for, I was, quite frankly, I was a guy in the NFL, but I really feel bad for guys like Warren Moon and
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Munchak and Bruce Matthews and Mike Munchak and Ray Childress and all of
Mhm.
these Al Smith, these guys who you know in that era of football, Houston, the city of Houston, the Love You Blue era, and then the Run and Shoot era. These people, it just lights up this older generation's face when you talk about Love You Blue and when you talk about
Mhm.
the Run and Shoot era. And unfortunately, there's nothing in the city that speaks to
Right.
that history. So, but
Mhm.
it's business, and I guess at this point, the Houston has learned to deal with it, and it is what it is.
Yeah. So, tell us about you. So you played at Alabama State. Is that right?
Yeah. So I went to a HBCU.
Mhm.
I grew up in Miami. I'm from Miami,
Mhm.
so all of my life I wanted to be with the Hurricanes, and coming out of high school, I
Mhm.
think that I was recruited by some schools, Iowa and Tulane, but not UM where I really wanted to go. So I was kind of up in the air of where I wanted to go, and a coach from Alabama State came to my house, and his dad coached in the neighborhood. He coached me in track, and he was a pillar in the community. His name was Pop McKenzie, and his son John McKenzie had got a job as the offensive coordinator at Alabama State, and he came to my
Mhm.
house and he introduced himself to my dad as Pop McKenzie's son, and he told my dad he gonna get a degree and he gonna go to church. And I came home from school one day and my dad said, "You going to Alabama State?" And I'm like, "What? Where's that? What are you talking about?" And he was like, "That's it. We're not talking about it no more. That's where you're going." And that's how I ended up at Alabama State. And quite frankly, it's one of the best decisions that I ever made. I love my university. Um,
Mhm.
I was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame there, and it was a heck
Wow.
of an opportunity.
Congratulations.
Yes, and it speaks to this idea that if you work hard, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your pedigree is, what your color, none of that
Mhm.
matters. If you work hard and do the right things, good things will happen to you. And so,
Mhm.
that's my life lesson in going to Alabama State and still having the opportunity to achieve my dream of playing in the NFL.
That's great. Now, were
Hey,
you what what Bryce?
hey, Jonathan, do you have a
Yo,
question for him, for Reginald Brown?
I want to know if that's
What?
a game worn jersey.
No, but it's an authentic jersey. So I didn't. It wasn't game worn, but it's authentic. They give you when you're a player, they give you multiple jerseys to sign, and you
Mhm.
keep a few. And I've had this one for, I guess, 30 years now.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So, were you drafted or were you
I was an
oh,
undrafted free agent, and
okay.
you think about this. I was undrafted back in a time when we had 12 rounds.
Oh
Oh
wow.
wow. Yeah.
And so, and on top of it, we ran the run and shoot. So the year that I came into the league, we had the 8 receivers from the year before in the run and shoot. And then we drafted 4 receivers out of the 12. And so I was very, very fortunate to through a lot of adversity and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of prayers and working hard and be able to still make the practice squad, with that
Mhm.
number of players. And then the next year I made the team, and the following year I made the team. And then after that, my third year, I tore my knee up in a preseason game, and I had already had
Mm.
knee surgery in college. And I did the surgery, but it was just a point where I said, you know what, I've made it, I've achieved this dream, and now maybe it's time for me to do something else.
He was
Wow.
telling
So
me about that a while ago, Haley, which was an interesting story.
yeah. So and you played with some of our guys that ended up here, like ended up some of like Blaine Bishop. I think you've said before you
Yes,
and Blaine are friends, like still
really, really
in
good
contact.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to
Mhm.
Blaine maybe last week. Michael
Okay.
Barrow, Mike
Mhm.
Barrow, Steve McNair. Obviously,
Yeah.
we played
Mhm.
against each other in college, and so
Okay.
I knew him from college. And then, at the first year he was here in Houston, and uh, that's what I was telling Bryce is I
Mhm.
can't say that I'm a Titans fan because I'm a Dolphins fan
Oh,
through and through,
right.
but I certainly follow the Titans because
Mhm.
of the connections that I have with some of the players, and then
Mhm.
one thing that you try to do as a football fan, and it's particularly an older fan, is to value um, franchises and what the Titans, do this blue collar kind of go
Mhm.
to work and and take care of business and type of franchise, and I really do
Yeah.
value that. I think that those types of values are lost on society. So when you see it, no matter the arena, you want to pay homage to it to some degree.
So how was like the training camp battles and stuff? Like
Yeah, I was
Generals around?
telling, yeah, I was telling Bryce, man, it's so different, and as a former, yes, I said Dolphins, Titan Fox. I will tell you that as a former player, I have these really mixed views on today's game and as compared to when I played. To your question, when I played in the 90s, early 90s, training camp was an absolute beast. We practiced 2 or 3 times a day. Practice was live contact every practice. There was no blowing the whistles. There was no, shorts and t-shirts. It was full dressed almost every practice. And, there was full contact almost every practice. And the guys were much tougher. Um, but on the flip side of that, I respect what they're doing now to keep players healthy. But I
They
do
got long
think,
careers, really.
yes, yeah, I do think that. Well, it's interesting you say that, Jonathan, because it's I think it's twofold.
Yeah.
When I played, though, you didn't have some of the injuries that you have now, right? So when I played, you might have 10 ACLs in a year, where now you almost have 10 ACLs on a team, right?
Mhm.
There was no such thing as a pectoral muscle getting torn. Achilles are popping, like rubber bands now. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's making the game any safer, save the physical concussions. It may be making that more safe, but just in the injuries, I think there are more injuries now than there were when I played.
I
Reginald
was gonna
Brown, I have a
uh,
question for you.
hang on, Bryce. I was gonna ask you that earlier. When you were talking about doing less in practice or how it's kind of softer now, I was good because with especially with the Titans, the injuries that we've been through the last couple seasons have just been absolutely insane. And I wondered if you felt like that kind of backing off in practice is affecting, the injuries in games, because it seems
Well,
like it would. It seems like on one side you're doing it for safety, but is it really, you know, I mean,
what I
concussion
think
wise,
is,
yeah, but
yeah, I think it's two things. I think one is, like you said, the guys aren't used to certain kind of movements that you have to
mm,
make in real time, right? So if you're practicing and it's a physical practice, you get used to doing these things to avoid the punishment or the meet force with force, all of those different things,
hmm
right? And then I
right,
think that the second thing is guys are lifting weights now, you know, uh, all year long, and guys are starting to lift weights earlier, and
Mm,
this year-round concentration. And then you look at some of these guys where they have no body fat. The body
mm.
is not meant for that. You got to have some fat, right? And so,
Right, yeah.
so
Yeah.
the way that guys train, you think about these ACLs are just being stretched to the point where they just snap. When I played,
Mm,
like I had two ACLs. Both of them I got hit in my ACL tour.
mm.
Now
They weren't
nobody's even
non
touching
yeah.
guys and they're
They're
popping.
non-contact injuries,
Right.
yeah.
And
Mhm,
you think about the Achilles being the strongest muscle in the body, and that is a non-contact injury where a guy
mhm,
plants his foot and it snaps. So I think it has a lot to do with the non-contact, and I think even more so it has a lot to do with the training over time. You think about
mm,
this, some guys, uh, their body is probably meant to carry 200 pounds, where
mhm.
they would have been my day been a running back, but now they're a linebacker. And linebackers are now defensive linemen. And because
Yep.
of the way that they're lifting weights and growing and the
Mhm,
nutrition and weight gain and all of this
mhm.
stuff, I just think that it's not good for the body.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bryce, I didn't mean to I just didn't wanna move on from that before I said it. Go ahead,
Hey,
Bryce.
Reginald Brown, so what do you think about the Titans moving on turf?
It's interesting because all of the research seems to point to we need to be playing on grass.
Mm,
But as I understand it, grass is more expensive. Um,
They threw
and
out a 17 game schedule.
yes,
mm,
and the upkeep of it and et cetera, et cetera. But when you're talking about the NFL as a business, multi billion-dollar industry, maybe even trillion at this point, we should be able to get the grass right and play on grass and not have to play on turf. You want the game as safe as possible. Um, and so that's interesting that I imagine that the NFL at some point is going to say all stadiums have to be grass and that will solve it.
Yeah, because
is it
that turf has like really good grip. So you're like, you plant your foot.
Yeah.
You're a running back.
mm,
Tear. That's how you tear an ACL right there. Let
mhm,
buckles
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So, and I mean, compared, the grass is so soft and cush, it just seems like
mm.
all teams would go to it. But, billionaires want to be trillionaires.
Well, it's interesting because kind of some of the reasoning that they've given for going because we've had grass for all these years, but
Right.
part of the reason that they've given is because of the injuries and because and I don't know if it has something to do with the area that we're in, like, it's hard for them to keep the grass getting
Yeah.
into winter months, and so, I know that that's part of it is that, keeping it lush and whatever, getting into the colder months because it's an outdoor, stadium, things that, we start getting cold here in November, and maybe it's because they can't keep it lush or whatever that maybe it's causing more injuries. But it's interesting that that's part of the reason that they said that they were moving away, doing this because they thought it would be safer. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Mm,
I just think that that's one of the things. Maybe as the technology gets better with grass and
yeah.
all of that,
Mm,
eventually, uh,
But
mm,
I think players for the speed of it. When turf first came out, guys really liked playing on it because of the speed and all of
mm,
that you could
mm,
play with.
yeah.
But now with the injury concerns, it's going the other way.
Well, like if you look back, like at the Super Bowl, they played on grass, but
Mm,
clear sliding, you couldn't get grip. That was an issue in
mm,
the grip.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pros and cons. To me, ultimately, it's which one provides the most safety for players.
mm.
Um, yeah.
So I had a question. I, so I'm leaving early in the morning to go on a trip, so I'm gonna have to get off here in a minute because I haven't even started packing. But I had one. Well, I've actually heard you talk about this before in spaces, but I just think it's interesting because I've never really heard an NFL player talk about being a fan of another team while you're playing in the NFL. So I just wanted to ask you for them and those listening, like I know you've talked about before, like when you would play, because you're a lifelong Dolphins fan, obviously that's where your loyalty is, but you played for a different team and what that was like being in the NFL playing for a different team when you faced your favorite team, or even when you watched them when you're looking at standings, whatever, like what that was like for
Yeah,
you.
it was a very difficult to navigate. I'm from
Mm,
Miami.
mm,
When I was my first job at 12 or 13 years old, you could go to the Dolphins Stadium, the Orange Bowl, and you could sell sodas and hot dogs. And so that's how I made my little, spending money was go to the games on Sunday and sell
mm,
sodas and,
mm,
um, followed the team and rooted all my life.
mm,
And then you get to the NFL and that light switch doesn't go off, and particularly when they had Dan Marino and all of that, such
mm,
a good team back in those days. Um, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I had the opportunity to play against the Dolphins twice, and
mm,
it was tough. We played in Miami one time, and so it was really cool. My family and my friends were able to come to the game and see me play, and uh, I certainly wanted us to win as a competitor,
mm.
but when they beat us, I wasn't walking off the field.
You're
Uh,
kind of okay too.
it was
Yeah.
like, all right, we lost, but it's the
Yeah.
Dolphins, so it's okay. And then the
Right.
second time we played them here in Houston, um,
Mm,
we won, and we were on a roll. And so while it hurt to look at the scoreboard and see the Dolphins losing, I mean, I felt that pain, but
yeah.
at the same time, I was the one a part of inflicting the pain, so it was all right. So
Sure.
I don't care what a player would tell you, you can't throw that away, but for 60
Mm,
minutes you can put it in your back pocket and not
yeah.
and go to work.
I think it's interesting because not a lot of players I think would even really go into discussing that, because they don't want to, whatever they, so I think it's interesting because, I mean, I've always thought that, like, I mean, so many of these players had to grow up with a team that they loved. Like that doesn't just go away, and so I think that's really interesting to
And
hear that perspective. So,
particularly for diehard fans like I was. Like
hmm
I'm a
yeah,
diehard Dolphins fan.
hmm
I bleed it, and when I was growing up, the Dolphins lost in the San Francisco Super Bowl, and I cried. I mean, I went in the closet and cried, and my daddy
hmm
came in there with a belt, like, "What is wrong with you? This is just a football game." So
right,
for me, I really loved my team, and
hmm
most guys are like that. I understand why guys don't say it, but I'm 53 now, so what they gonna do to me?
right. No, I love that you do. I think it's interesting. I think it adds a human aspect to things to say, people are human and they have, you don't just get rid of your childhood, your, allegiances, your fandom, just because you're in the NFL. So I
And,
think it's interesting.
and
So,
I think the interesting part
hmm
of it is when you get into the playoff races, right? And
hmm
maybe they're playing a team that you so they're playing a different team, and you need the different team to win to help your playoff game team
yep. hmm
chances. But then it's the Dolphins, and fortunately, I was never in that situation because I'm gonna
That
tell
would be
you,
tough. Yeah.
it would have been tough for me to say I want the Dolphins to lose. I just
Yeah. hmm
I
Yeah.
just want them to win, man. They
hmm
shouldn't have spoiled me with 17-0, even though I was 3 years old or 2 years old at the time.
yeah. Well, I gotta get off here and go pack, but I'm gonna keep listening while I get packed up. But it was nice to talk to you again. Thanks for coming on. for
Of course.
Bryce. He's been excited all week to talk to you. So
Yes,
we
yes, yes.
appreciate your time, and like I said, I'll keep listening.
Hey, thank you for
All right.
inviting me. Thank you,
Thanks
Haley,
for
for
coming
inviting
on,
me in the space
Haley.
to make me feel comfortable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We always love listening to you, talking to you. So come
Bye.
in Titan Spaces anytime. So
Yes.
all right.
Bye,
All right. Bye,
Haley.
Bryce. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Bryce, you got any questions for Reginald Brown?
Uh, so yeah, what I wanted to kind of go over with him is from the one moon standpoint, where he played with one moon, and how was how was it when he was throwing the ball to you and stuff?
I mean, it's one of those things where I can still remember the first time catching a pass from him, and it was rookie mini camp, and the first rookie mini camp, and I was so locked in of trying to make the team that I went to the line and I ran the route. It was we called it the choice route and the run and shoot, and so I ran it out, and the ball came and I caught it, and I looked back and it was Warren, and I hadn't noticed that he had came on the field, and immediately, this nostalgia of you see a guy who you grew up watching, and then it kind of dawns on you, really sets in that you're in the NFL. But when you talk about Warren Moon, you're talking about a class act all the way around, man. I mean, this guy uh, was a professional. Uh, he went about his business as a professional. He wasn't a talker. He didn't do a lot of screaming. He played the game the way it was supposed to be played.
Hey,
Um, and
Jonathan,
then
Hold on,
you,
Bryce.
do a screen record on this. That means he's giving Warren Moon a shout out.
yes, and then you look at Warren. You're talking about a Hall of Famer on top of being just a great guy. I mean, you're talking about a guy who just throws a sparrow. I mean, just a tight sparrow. And when he threw it, it was looked as if it was coming at you 100 miles an hour because the sparrow was so tight. But and you have to, it's hard to explain this to people, but when it hit your hands, it was soft as butter, man. It just stuck to your hands, and you see it coming, and you're trying to get ready to brace for it, but then it was so soft, such an easy ball to catch, man. And again, Hall of Famer, done everything that you could do in the game, and the fact that he played for 7 or 8 years in Canada and still has, come close to breaking every record in the NFL is just nuts.
Hey, so Reginald Brown, I want to ask you this. So, what was the transition to Steve McNair to Warren Moon?
Transitioning
Well,
quarterbacks.
yeah, there were a couple people in the middle there. Cody Carson, and then gosh, Chandler, Chris Chandler came along, and so because Warren left and went to Minnesota, which again, those things are such travesties, when it happens, and unfortunately, it's happened, obviously this year with Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. Some guys are just meant to stay with their teams, and I think Warren was meant to stay with the Oilers, although he played a year or two in Minnesota. And I think the same thing about Aaron Rodgers. And unfortunately, there's been very few quarterbacks that have had success when they've left, particularly long guys like I think Joe Montana may have had some success when he went to Kansas City, and Brady obviously won a Super Bowl. But Steve McNair was just a beast, man. And that guy, As I said, I was very fortunate to watch him in college, and this guy, just a freak of nature, man. Just strong as an ox, arm strength, everything that you want, talented, smart, and we lost him way too early, man. And
Um, yeah, Steve McNair actually played through a lot of injuries too.
a warrior, man, just an absolute warrior. He's gonna come to work every day, and on Sunday he's gonna show up. And
What did you think of Eddie George when he came into the league?
a beast, man. Uh, yeah, playing. You know, it started. You could see who he was in college at Ohio State, just the way he ran the football, and then uh, I love to see the old clips of him and Ray Lewis. I mean, just you watch you watch those videos of him and Ray Lewis. If that don't get you pumped up and ready to go, nothing will. Because those two dudes, they didn't like playing against each other, and they played like they didn't like each other. And you know, when I was a college coach some years ago, I used to always show kids those clips of them two playing against each other because that's how you play the game.
It's like a tackle machine coming out of running back,
Yes. I mean,
full strength.
yes, just two physical, tough-nosed guys who love to play the game and who are not giving an inch. They just gonna get after it.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Yo,
So, do you have any questions for Reginald?
yeah. So Reginald, who would you call the best defensive player you went up against in the NFL?
Deion
Like
Sanders.
Deion Sanders. Damn, you got covered by Deion Sanders. That's crazy. That's pretty
Deion,
cool.
man. Yeah. Deion, he changed the game. The cornerback position was almost, you had guys. So I don't want to make it seem like that, but he revolutionized that position. When you said, you 10 play over here, and me and him gonna be one on one, and don't worry about this guy. Y'all 10 over there. Y'all do y'all thing. I got this over here, and was able to, take away a half of a field, and he, as an athlete, when you look at him, you don't see this force that Deion Sanders is. You don't think that this guy can play and run as fast and jump as high and is as quick as he was, but no doubt about it. I'll also say he was leaving the league when I got there, and he was older, but I really enjoyed watching Lawrence Taylor as well. I mean, that guy
Yeah.
was just a force and just a physical, and he just want to beat you and tear you apart, and you know old school football, which is what I really really enjoy watching and thinking about.
Jonathan, I kind of miss those old school days.
Yeah, that was hard. Smash mouth football right there.
Let me ask you guys a question. So, where do you think about Tannehill and what's going on with the quarterback position?
Hmm.
Well, I'm a
Well,
Dolphins, but
Yes.
I'm friends with a lot of these Tennessee fans, and they're some are like supporting Malik, others are like wanting to transition to Levis, and then you still have Tannehill here. A lot of people also want Tannehill gone because of the contract that
Yeah.
he'll cap space or whatever. But
It's a
I
mess.
I see Tannehill staying and starting the season week 1. That's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I do too.
There's no way
And,
season would just
and I actually met him at the game.
Ryan's a good dude.
I mean, when the Dolphins drafted him, I had some reservations Coming from being a receiver and then
Hey,
only.
Jonathan, can you take over for just a minute, buddy? I'm gonna go find that video of Tannehill.
Okay, we got it. Go
Hold
ahead.
on, just 1 second.
Yeah, coming out of college, having only played a year and a half of quarterback, and I had my reservations. I thought that the Dolphins really didn't do him any favors while he was there. We never had. I think we only had maybe 1 year of competent receiver play.
Yeah,
I mean, he had Jarvis Landry, and that was it.
he had. Well, was that
Then
he had Mike Wallace, or was there you had Mike Wallace and
yeah,
Jarvis Landry, and I'm like, man, he had weapons, but
yeah, he just couldn't do it late. He couldn't do it late, and he just didn't work out with the Dolphins. I think we give Tannehill a lot of slack. He can't. It ain't his fault the Dolphins drafted him 5th overall or 8th. Was it 8th round?
I think it was 7th or 8th.
7th or 8th. Yeah, it
Yeah.
ain't his fault. They drafted him there. I think for who Tannehill was, when you consider everything about him, I think he's had a pretty decent NFL career. I mean, he's not a bum.
If you look at it, that draft, Tannehill came out of the 2012 draft. Andrew Luck's gone. RG3's career was cut short. The only other quarterback besides Tannehill in that draft was Russell. And
Was
they're the
he? How many people were drafted before Tannehill?
2. Are we talking quarterback wise?
Yes.
Andrew Luck at 1 and RG3 at 2.
So he was the 3rd one drafted.
He was the 3rd quarterback. So
And he's still going.
and he's still going. The other 2 are retired.
And his teams, has Luck ever made it to the AFC Conference Championship?
He has not. I think he got some playoff wins under his belt, but I don't know. I would think Tannehill's had the most success out of all those if you're going to count Russell Wilson was taken in what, the 3rd?
Yeah.
Almost? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to compare Russell Wilson to Tannehill, but
what do you see with the Dolphins? Since Bryce is gone, we can just take over the space and talk about the Dolphins for a second.
I'm excited. I mean, so with the Dolphins, I think it was a good year 1 under Mike McDaniel.
Very good.
Exciting. Waddle, Tyreek Hill, like all that is just pretty good, first season or whatever. Now it's a year 2 in the system with McDaniel. I was like preaching all last season to fire Josh Boyer, the defensive coordinator, because I felt the offense was scoring points, but the defense was allowing other teams to stay in games with us.
Right.
A lot of people were like noticing that, but I'm like, a good game was like the Chicago Bears game. I think the Lions even kept up with us a little bit. The Bills or whatever, just they were playing a bunch of like the corners. They were playing off the receivers, allowing the receivers to make catches and then get yards after the catch. And I think to me that was like, man, you got to play tight coverage.
Well, I think that I think our biggest acquisition is Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
Right? And then I think number 2, a second year Mike McDaniels is going to be huge. A guy who, he got enamored with Waddle and Cheetah, and he got away from his roots of running the ball and doing all of the things that the Shanahan tree does. But he's such a cerebral guy. He's such a guy who really is reflective. And I imagine the offense this year is going to look totally different from last year, which is scary to think about.
It's going to be more explosive, I think. I hope the defense is going to be good. At one point I was like, hey, we're losing Byron Jones because whatever his issues are. I don't know who we're going to have opposite Xavier Howard. And I was worried, like, we're going to have Noah Benogany, and I'm like, I don't trust that.
Oh my God.
He's terrible. But then, you bring in Jalen Ramsey, who's even probably a little better than and has accomplished more in this league than Byron Jones. I was like, I'll take it. Like, it's
Yeah.
an upgrade in my opinion.
Yes.
But I think the only issue that I see is Miami strengthening up that offensive line a little bit. I think that's the weak link still on the team. It has been since the Richie Incognito and Jonathan.
Right. We haven't had a serviceable offensive line
Yeah,
since Richie and Alberts and Pouncey. That whole offensive line, man, and it's just amazing that they just can't fix it, man.
yeah. Since that offseason, the Dolphins have been trying to fix the line for all those years, and it's still today an issue.
Hey, Jonathan, can you help me out real quick? I can't find the video.
What do you need me to do?
Can you go search on Mr. Titan's Twitter and see if you can find it?
Yes.
Bryce, how long have you been a Titans fan?
I've been a Titans fan since I was little.
What made you start liking the Titans?
I started liking them since I was when Mariota played for them.
Was it the uniforms? Was it the particular player? What endeared you to them?
The uniforms.
All right, so you like them uniforms? That's what got you hyped about them.
The old day uniforms were awesome, but
Yeah, Bryce, I couldn't find that video.
hold on, Reginald Brown. I'm gonna go find that video and see if I can find it. I'm gonna go on my buddy Oiler Titans Twitter and see if I can find it there. Jonathan, I'll be right back. Okay, buddy.
All right.
You just sit here and hang out with Reginald Brown.
We'll talk Dolphins.
Okay. Don't do it for too long, then Miss Wanda will be yelling at you.
Yeah, is she still in
She'll be
here?
fine. We trying to convert her. She'll be fine.
Miss LaWanda. She won't be there. She won't convert.
How did you
But-
get hooked, Jonathan? How did you get hooked up with Titan Spaces?
It's a long story. Greg,
Yes.
he had like he followed Tannehill from Miami to Tennessee. So he started following Tannehill, whatever. So he made us group chat on Twitter of Dolphins fans and Titans fans. And it didn't, to me, I was like, it was very weird at first. I was like, this isn't going to work. Two teams of franchises. I mean, sure, we can talk and dog on Tannehill, but it was just a weird combination where I wasn't for it. I was like, I'm not going to get along with other fans or whatever. But I made a lot of good friends through Titans Twitter and stuff. So
yes.
I'm thankful for it. It was I didn't see it coming, but
Let me ask you this: how has Twitter enhanced your football experience?
it's made it a lot better. It gives you more access to like the players. But it's quicker getting like updates on the league itself. News spreads a lot faster on Twitter versus back like before Twitter was a thing. Like you would just get your your breaking news from like ESPN and NFL Network or whatever the media outlets were back then. But now it's like you can refresh Twitter and have the breaking news in seconds.
Yeah. And I think for me, what I've really been impressed about, and I have to say this honestly, man, I've played the game, I've coached it, I'm a fan of it. It's been my life. But the level of knowledge that you find on Twitter and in spaces is incredible, man. I mean, when you find out that people like the word fanatic is a real word. Like, these people are freaking crazy about their team. They know everything about their team. They find out everything about their team's opponents. I mean, I am just, quite frankly, over the last 3 or 4 years, shocked by just the pure knowledge of people that you run into on Twitter and their knowledge of the game.
So like the thing with Twitter though is like, I agree, it helps you connect with other fans of your team or like other teams. Like, I got to meet Bryce and stuff, but like
I actually found it.
Oh, you did?
It's your first game and you come to a lot.
It's his first Titans game.
I love it. Thanks for coming out. Nice to meet you.
Can you sign this?
Yeah.
There we go.
And I got a jersey.
Oh, you do?
And you got his jersey.
Love it.
You guys.
What jersey?
What jersey? There you go.
Very cool, Bryce.
Hell yeah, that's pretty cool, bro.
Here's the other one. I met Derek.
Look at Derrick Henry. Look at the king. There we go.
What's up, buddy, man? Oh, thanks for coming. Good to see you, man.
I got something for you to sign.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
I'm gonna give Preston a shout out again.
All right.
My name is Preston
Check this
Penn,
out,
also
Reggie
known
Brown.
as The Collector,
Cool.
and I'm a Titans super fan. I think what sets me apart from other Titans fans is that I'm a very hardcore collector. So I started collecting Titans cards when they came out in 1999, when the team finally became the Tennessee Titans. One other thing I thought was cool is I've got a card of Eddie George actually holding his kid that just graduated from Vanderbilt that was a Vanderbilt football player. And I've got a Steve McNair card that he signed for me at training camp one year. I have 24 Titans game-worn helmets. I've got a couple Steve McNair, I've got Eddie George, a couple Albert Haynesworth, Vince Young game-worn throwback helmet. I've got a game-issued MTSU helmet that is signed by Kevin Byard. It's a chrome helmet. And I've got pretty much almost every era of Titans football represented in those helmets. Over time, I got a complete uniform of Eddie George. I've got his helmet in it, one of his jerseys from 2003, a pair of his game pants, a pair of his game gloves, and a pair of his cleats that were issued to him. And aside from my helmet collection, my cleats, my footballs, and cards, there's my jersey collection.
Feel good, I feel great. Feel good.
I have enough game jerseys to dress the 53-man roster 7 times over. I've got almost 400 Titans game jerseys. These are jerseys that are either worn by the player or issued to the player. This is kind of a unique one. It's an Eddie George Pro Bowl game-worn jersey from 1999. Another one that I really like is Taylor Lewan's jersey. This was worn in 2017 against the Colts. I mean, I've gotten a lot of them signed. There's still quite a few that I've not, but that's kind of a never-ending quest, I guess.
One of a kind, there ain't no more. You ain't seen nothing like this before.
I think my favorite jersey out of all of them is probably a Tennessee Oilers jersey from 1998. It was worn by Derek Mason, and the interesting thing about that is that they wore the white jerseys all season long. That is the only color jersey they wore. You can see that it has a lot of repairs, different places. Of course, I got him to sign it, but this thing looks like it's been worn probably the entire season. One jersey that I have that I think is pretty awesome is one of Randy Moss's game jerseys. He was only with the Titans, I think, for 11 games, and I've got one of his game-worn jerseys. So my oldest jersey I have is actually a jersey that was issued to Earl Campbell, and got him to sign it.
I like men with the head off a lemon's ass, baby, we're fresh.
It's just like the thrill of the chase. I mean, it's kind of fun to see what you can find. I think there's a lot of things about collecting I enjoy. I think it's cool to be able to share with your friends, oh, I got this or I got that. And it's not just collecting something and you sit on a shelf. I mean, there's a story behind pretty much every piece you have. And I mean, I'll do trade some, but it's so much fun to collect it. Because I feel like if I was buying everything to sell, it would take the fun out of it. You know, there wouldn't be the thrill of getting something new. And to me, some things are more valuable than money. I mean, it's just these memories are priceless to me.
That is nuts.
How cool is that?
Damn. That is all right. And that's just what we were saying, man. I don't think that I, as a player, and really until I got to Twitter, really they understood the gravity of how deeply people are invested in their teams. Like, I know how invested I am, but I have often just attributed to me being an athlete. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I eat, breathe, and live the Dolphins because one day I want to play for them. And so, but man, just to see and really experience, like I come in tight in spaces and, and I'll, after Sunday, obviously I go to Dolphin spaces first and kind of, win or lose and deal with that and, go through the emotions that are the Dolphins. And you certainly know this, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Then I will go into other spaces and I'll come into the Titan spaces and see just how, hurt or ecstatic the fans are, depending on whether it's a win or a loss, and how it clearly there's a connection to how good your team does and how good of a week you're going to have until next Sunday, Yep.
You have a whole week to decompress, whether win or loss, and then you focus on the next game.
Especially with the loss. Like, I don't get right after a loss until about Thursday morning.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk Dolphins. I mean, I'll come in spaces, but I don't really want to say much. And but right around Thursday,
time to focus.
Yeah. You turn the page and now you start getting jacked again for the game.
That's my feeling too about the Titans.
Yep. So I think the thing with Twitter though is like me being a Dolphins fan or whatever in Texas, you feel like you're the only one. That way. So to be able to get on Twitter and connect with fans from like all over the country, like whether they're from Miami or they're up north and like wherever they're from. I've seen Dolphins fans in Ohio, all over the place. California is a heavy Dolphins,
Where are you located at, Jonathan?
I'm so like in between San Antonio and Corpus Christi.
All right, I'm in Houston.
Yeah, you're from what, Sugarland or?
Sugarland, yeah.
I've driven through there so many times, driving into Houston. So,
well, the next time you come, man, you got to hit me up, man, and we stop and go drink a beer or something.
Hell yeah, I got your number, so I'll shoot you.
Yes.
Right, knows I like beer, so he always makes fun of me. Bryce always gives me stuff for drinking beer all the time. So.
Hey, man. It's all right.
I don't care, Jonathan.
But Bryce, man, I really appreciate you for having me on, man. It's been a blast. Jonathan, thank you, man. It's been a blast. And like I said, I'm a Dolphins fan, but I keep my eyes on the Titans, man. And it's been a blast talking to you. You guys just have me back whenever, man.
Yes, sir. I mean, you got to respect the team you played for, the colors you represented, but at the same time, your loyalties with the Aqua and Orange. So.
Yes, indeed. Wouldn't have it no other way.
Exactly. So I'm going to be at the Dolphins-Texans game in August. The Dolphins are playing a preseason game there, so I don't know.
In Miami?
They're going to play in Houston.
Oh, bet. I didn't know that.
I think they're playing the – hold on. I'll let you know. Hold on.
Hey, most definitely. Well, you got my number, man. You definitely. We got to hook up, man.
Yeah. There's I think it's the third and final preseason game, so Miami's coming to Houston, so they'll be at NRG.
Yeah, so you got some friends and some partners that's coming down?
I don't know if anybody from Dolphins Twitter is going to go over here for
I got you, man. I got you.
But
you let me know. I got some partners who huge Texans fans. They do a huge tailgate, et cetera, et cetera. We'll chop it up. You come, eat some good food, drink a few beers. We got to chop it up. You got my number, so as it gets closer, hit me up, and so we can set it up.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yes, for sure.
So we'll get to see the last look at the team before.
Oh yeah,
week 1. So.
Oh yeah,
be pretty good.
We'll get to see some rookies who ain't gonna make the team, but we might see a few that's gonna make it.
Well, the thing that I'm watching for with Miami in training camp is the running backs. They brought back every running back. I don't know why they even brought back Myles Gaskin or I like Savon Ahmed or whatever, but they brought back Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Myles Gaskin. Like that's too many running backs.
Well, I think those are guys.
The guy they've drafted.
Well, I think those are guys that, particularly Ahmed, is a guy that you keep who can. I think he has one more year for the practice squad. I think. But if you keep him for a training camp body, he knows the system, etc. And if you cut him, nobody picks him up. If somebody gets hurt, you can always grab him back off the streets and he'll know what's going on. So I didn't see it as such an issue. Hopefully June 1st.
Brown, I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Bryce, man. And you my dude, and whenever you need me, I'm here for you, bro.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We'll definitely do this again.
Hey, you just let me know when and where, and I'm here for you, bro.
All
right. You guys have a great evening. Hey, Jonathan, hit me up.
Yeah, I'll send you a text. You get my number.
For sure.
All right. See you guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you for listening in the chat tonight.